How are we supposed to live? What I'm asking today from the house of my youth, where I grew up, because I am in Wisconsin visiting my parents for Christmas. What I am asking today, because this is the kind of question that you ask around Christmas time when you travel back to the home of your childhood and take stock in yourself as you feel who you are now compared to who you were then. What I am asking today is, how is a person supposed to live? Now, I've begun to develop some answers to this question. So that's the good news. And I would like to offer that good news to you. I like morsels of optimism. I like the notion, the idea, the orientation that there is truth. You know, we don't like that word these days. We don't like words that put us in any kind of a cage. We like our freedom. Absolute freedom. That's our reigning value in neoliberal, late capitalism, Western culture. We want freedom. Well, I want truth. I always have, and maybe you do too. I don't believe that my freedom amounts to anything if it's not connected to a greater, probably ineffable, but nonetheless in some way discoverable truth. So, I think if a guy does spend 13 years at a monastery, he should have some truths, right? And I'm going to actually share it with you. And it's probably going to be disappointing, okay? But I'm going to do my best to get it across to you and to answer this question of, hey, how should a person live? Being at home in America and with my family and here in the home that I grew up in, with the guns on the wall, etc. Being at home allows me to see myself and to see the people and the circumstances that gave rise to me in a new light. One thing that's become kind of clear to me is that I don't really know who I am, and neither does my family. Like, I walk through the world presenting what I hope is a pretty clear and consistent presence and face to people, but in the end, they just draw completely and totally their own conclusions about me, about who and what I am. I mean, for example, I was attending a wedding in Colorado. So my niece got married in Colorado. So my whole kind of family had to fly out there the week before Christmas. Wonderful wedding. My brother had rented a house. We all went over to this house, this big family thing there. People were talking. We're all sort of getting reacquainted with each other. And my dad was standing at the oven making some eggs with my sister. And I come up behind my dad, and he's talking about me. I'm behind his back. He's talking about me when I'm behind his back. And this is sort of how my dad's, he's Biden's age, which is to say very old. And he just kind of lets it all hang out now. So he's talking to my sister, and he's like, I don't even know what he does for a living. I don't know how he manages to get his way through the world and make money and pay for his bills living in a foreign country. Like, what does my son do for a living? And I'm not going to get into the mechanics of how I squeak my way through the world financially here, but I thought it was kind of funny because I have told my dad how I get by in the past. And I try and present an attitude to him where I'm okay, I'm doing pretty good financially, I'm killing it in life, Dad. But here he is, talking about me to my sister like, what the hell is this loser doing for a living? So right out of the gates, I found myself hurt and annoyed when I came home. And can you describe, is there any more clear description of how we often feel around our parents and around family members? Like, you're really excited to see them, you're totally open, and then they say something stupid. In the past, I think that sadness and anger would have overwhelmed me. But this time, for whatever reason, I managed to do something that my monastic practice taught me and all those years at the meditation cushion trained me to do. I managed to take a breath and put my attention, if you will, on the feeling that had come up in me. My attention went to the feeling, and it kept returning to the feeling, the sadness and the anger, and returned again to the sadness and the anger. And the quality of the attention was flavorless and colorless because I was very hot inside. And the attention was just like cool, clean water, right? Didn't need to have any narrative behind it or any motivation or any intention. All it was attention, okay? And I continued. I don't even want to say I continued. The attention returned again and again to the pain because I guess I'm an animal. And if you kick an animal, a human animal in this case, enough times, it starts to learn things. And I don't like to feel resentment towards my father. I don't like to feel this same kind of anger and regret that he still to this day feels towards his father. I guess I'm done with that. I want to have a connection to him, I guess is how you could put it. Or I don't want to be burdened by baggage. I don't want to carry that baggage around, I guess, because my attention kept returning to the pain. Now, gradually, after a while, I guess the attention and the pain did something. They, behind a closed door where your humble narrator here was unaware of, they came to some resolution, right? So every time I remembered that moment with my dad, I started getting pissed off. And then the attention, how do you feel? You know, sometimes I'll get a little bit teary, or other times I'll get a little bit angry, but the attention and the pain came together, and gradually the problem dissolved, right? I was able to make some kind of peace with this problem, and once again, and I know this happened because I was able to feel open and generous towards my dad. Having had this experience with my dad right out of the gates during this home visit, put me on a certain path of introspection as I've been interacting with family members. For myself, one thing I noticed is that I tend to make snap judgments about family members and not necessarily see the full picture, not necessarily acknowledge and be open to the breadth and the depth of their humanity. I mean, there's so many of us that it's like everybody kind of has a little role, right? And that's very interesting. And so I tried to trouble my preconceptions about family members. It had hurt me when I saw that my dad had a preconception about me. Like maybe kind of a loser, okay? And I thought, I don't want to do this to other family members. Like, one of the things as I skate into middle age that I've come to realize is that family actually is really important. Like, these people, if you get along with them and you have a relationship with them to whatever degree, it's actually really important, family. And I didn't want to be a guy who sees like a niece or a nephew and puts them in a box, because I guarantee you they feel that box. Family is so sensitive to family, and they know when you're putting them in a box by the questions you ask, by the conversation that you initiate, by the way you end conversations, they know, right? Family dynamics are very sensitive. And so I thought to myself, I don't want to be unmindful of how I interact with family members, and I don't want to put them in boxes and assume things about them. So as I was interacting with my many, many different family members, I was attentive within myself of the preconceptions that I had. And this was not a conscious project that I set out to do, but it was more just a spark of awareness. I would note when I saw a family member, oh, this is how I feel about that person. This is the flavor and the color that I've assumed that they are. And then I would put my attention onto the person and really listen to them. Instead of trying to be the big shot uncle or something, or the cool brother or something. You know, I've done my best to really pay attention to the person in front of me. And one of the things I've seen is that the person in front of me, when I've really paid attention, the person has blossomed in front of me. Attention brings people out of themselves the way the sun brings a flower out of itself. And so attention healed some of the anger and pain inside of me around the issue with my dad, and it brought people to life in a beautiful way in front of me that allowed me to really see them for who they were, beyond the mask that they present me and the screen I have in front of me through which I see them. So now we're coming closer to that truth that I talked about and that I promised you earlier. I told you it would be disappointing, but it's not. It hasn't been for me anyway. It's a humble, simple truth. How is a person supposed to live? By paying attention. How am I supposed to be in this world? Attentive. When I was a monk at the monastery, we had a core root practice called Zazen. Zazen means sitting Zen and is generally understood to be Zen Buddhist meditation. The practice was extremely simple. You were taught to dissolve yourself in the breath. So we were taught to bring our attention to the activity of breathing. Meditation or Zazen is very clear. It is giving your attention to the breath, which is to say, you and breathing become one. There's no separation. And when you do this sort of thing, you forget yourself and you connect completely with the activity, giving your attention to the breathing. This was the core root practice that I learned at the monastery. Now, I don't do that core root practice anymore with nearly as much as I did at the monastery. And certainly you don't either. I mean, nobody does Zazen meditation as much as monks, right? But the principle of attention is the same. All we were doing as monks was a very, very simple attention practice when we were sitting and breathing. The world is way more complex, but the practice or the shugyo, the spiritual training or manifestation is the same. So, how should I be in the world? Attentive. Attention is truth. It can be applied to any situation. If I'm upset, if I'm super joyous, if I'm bored, if I'm scared, any situation is is made true when attention manifests there. And from the manifestation of attention, attention, baby. Attention, attention, attention. So I hope you got something out of this video. I would appreciate a subscribe and a like if you are so inclined. These things help me reach an audience here on YouTube. Thank you as well to my new patrons and my old patrons on Patreon. If you like this channel and you want to support what I do here and join my community over on Patreon, that would be wonderful. I'm going to leave a link in the video description below. There's essays, blogs, and videos, as well as a neat collection of people over on Patreon, some of whom are now starting to connect outside of Patreon, from what I understand. People message me and they talk to each other on my blogs and videos and essays and stuff, and it's kind of a neat little community there. So if you want to be part of that, you can check the link below for Patreon. Sayonara, dear friends, until we meet again.